and welcome to Happy Horror Time. My name is Tim Murdoch.
And my name is Matt Emmert. Now, it doesn't have to be Thanksgiving for today's special guest to have us saying it's not cranberry sauce. After all, this was his signature line from the 1987 Thanksgiving set slasher Blood Rage, in which he played not one, but two characters, twins Terry and Todd. Now, one of these twins was a psychotic, cold-blooded killer, and the other, well, everyone just thought was. He also appeared in the 1989 horror sequel Graveyard Shift 2. We are so excited to welcome to the podcast Mark Soper.
Hey, guys.
How's it going?
Terrific. How's it going with you?
Great.
Good. You know, I heard you mention in your interview on the Blood Rage Blu-ray that you got addicted to acting after doing drama in school. So can you kind of take us through how that led to you pursuing it professionally?
Well, the short version, medium version, the version that I get a kick out of is that I was getting into some kind of troubles at school, and my sister said, go, the head of the theater department's an ex-Marine, and it'll take all your attention and all you have to give to it. And so I went down and I got cast in the Life and Death of Sneaky Fitch, which is it's some kind of high school churner, entertaining, appropriate project. And I got so nervous. I didn't even know it was nerves. I came down with a horrible fever, and they kept me home. And then they decided that the Marine said, he just has stage fright. He'll get over that as soon as he gets on stage. So I went down, and my parents agreed, and I went down. I might have been 10th grade. And I went down, and I had these long red underwear for this character. It was supposed to be some old cantankerous drunk or something. And I hadn't been at the tech, so it's the first time I'm on the auditorium stage. Auditorium stages all have that lacquered finish. They're not real theater stages. And I come bursting out at the beginning of these saloon doors. And I burst down the steps and onto the lacquered thing with the full bodysuit on, including feet. You can see where this is going. And my legs just went out completely underneath me with my fever of 103. I slid all the way down like I was doing an avalanche thing. I remember the feeling, and I said, I can't, I'm not going to stop this. And I hit the edge of the stage, and I just said, fuck it. And excuse me, can I say that?
Oh, yes, please. We cuss all the time.
So I just opened up Spread Eagle and went right down in the thing and landed for plumb.
And that was your first play?
Yeah, and I sat up like this, and the audience corpsed.
Wow.
They loved it.
So I laid back down and got back up again, and they corpsed again. And I laid back down and I got back up again, and the laughter was kind of dwindling down to 3. And then I got up and started the play. And that combination is the thing. It's the combination of whatever was causing that fever, that level of, honest to God, I don't remember feeling anxious, but I had myself worked up into some kind of a state that I had that fever, and then getting that response from an audience that I shot it right in the vein.
That's
But
awesome.
then the second part of your question was, and I'll stop before I go into professionally. Do you want to respond?
Oh yeah. How did that perform?
That kind of thing is pretty common. What I just told you,
Mm-hmm.
whether people will tell you or not, whether they know it or not, I would say well over 50% of people who spend their lives doing this got an addicted. The other thing is also very common, which is that I broke up with my true love in college. I knew that acting wasn't anything a serious grown-up would do. And when we broke up, however, it happened, and it broke my heart. Oh, my God. I was so devastated. And I decided I would do whatever the hell I wanted to do with my life. Again, fuck it. And
Hey,
No,
so
I mean, when your heart's broken, I mean, you just want to go to where the love is, and then that seems to be on stage. So
fresh start.
I never thought of that before. I just thought about the pressure of making a living and being a regular citizen and getting married and having family and doing all that stuff. That's the way it was done back then still.
not required.
Did you then
Fair enough. Fair enough.
how did you jump into like getting an agent, and how did that all start after doing theater?
When I went to New York, I was East Coast. I was a serious actor. I mean, really bone-crackingly serious and so ambitious. And it was still, anyway, when I went to New York, all I thought was, can I ever get a paying job? Will I ever get a paying job? I basically did three things to prepare. We won't go through all three of them, but one of them, I want to get into all of this actually, but I got to audition at Circle Rep, and I was doing summer stock. And how I got that audition is just a whole book, and I don't even know if I want to go public with all of it because it just looks better on the resume if I just say I was a member of Circle Rep.
Yeah.
But
there's a lot of things on my resume questionable.
I was knocking on some doors, is what I'm saying. But I got an opportunity to audition, and I got the part.
That's awesome. And growing up, were you a fan of horror films? Were any on your radar?
You know, I know the only one that leaps to mind is that, it's not really a horror film per se. The blind woman falls down and pulls herself across, the bad guy's pulling himself across the floor with a knife, and Audrey Hepburn's running around blind and she can't see.
Oh, Wait Until Dark, right?
Yeah, wait, but that's not really what you mean.
No, it's a good one.
That thriller
it's a thriller.
Yeah.
But the horror film genre really, I haven't thought about this, so please, I'm 70 years old, guys. Horror films really didn't take off till the 80s. I mean, they were around. Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah, that was 70s.
I made myself, when I got Blood Rage, I went, well, this is brand new. What the hell am I going to do with this? And The Shining, I think, had just come out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
1980.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I went out and got Chainsaw Massacre. I went back and looked at Kubrick's thing again. I didn't understand it the first time, but after I did my research on horror films, I went, it is a masterpiece of that genre, extended. You know what I mean? But I didn't know that genre. So when I saw his film, I thought, well, this is weird. It's really great, whatever it is, but what is it?
Now, did you go back and watch the greatest slasher of all time, the original Halloween from 1978 by John Carpenter?
I'm not going to say I didn't, but I would think if I saw that at that time, I'm so aware of it now.
Yeah.
That, but I'm not going to say. I got a bunch of, they were 8-tracks back, like 8-track video. They were whatever you call them.
VHS or beta?
VHS, the big ones, not the little ones.
Oh, yeah, beta.
Yeah, whatever they were. They were around for about 5 years or so, and then they got replaced by the smaller ones. But I don't remember what they all were, except I do distinctly remember Chainsaw Massacre, because I went, whatever this genre is, this is a standout.
Yeah. So before Blood Rage,
and I still think that about that film. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, no,
Oh, they hold up for sure.
Yeah, the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
That's what I'm talking about.
Iconic.
What they're doing is that's a little fulfilled. They're imagining in that space in a way that's a little more uncomfortable than some of the other horror films, which they kind of give you a way out. You know what I mean? We're over the top. That was a little at times,
No, definitely. So, but I was going to say, before Blood Rage, I noticed that your very first feature film was 1982's The World According to Garp, where you starred alongside some big names like Robin Williams, Glenn Close, John Lithgow, Jessica Tandy. So what was that experience like?
I walked in for the first read, And you never know. I was still relatively young. Who's going to make you nervous and who isn't going to make you nervous? And it doesn't really have to do it, whatever it has to do with their persona, something about the way they. But I don't know why I was late. Maybe I was being a jerk, being a young star jerk and who's the last one in the room. I can't imagine because of everybody involved in it. But however, I got there late, not late, but towards right before start. And as I was walking around, all these people are gathered around this big round table for the first table read of the script with, oh God, that wonderful director. And Butch Cassidy, Sundance Kid, all that. So I walk in and somebody says, well, this is Mark, and all very friendly people. And there's kind of a community of New York actors and kind of a community of New York working actors. So there were 2 or 3 people I'd met and that people knew each other. It was very convivial. And hi, and there's Robin. Hey, Robin. And there's Hugh Cronin and Jessica Tandy. And I went,
So you were starstruck.
Oh, I don't know what it was. It was a physical reaction. It was literally a physical reaction, and I had no anticipation of it. So what was it like? It was, watching Robin Williams. He was just the most generous spirit. He was the most sensitive person I think I have ever met. And he could switch from this to and rehearsing it on a soundstage with him, Mr. Serious Actor, and watching him just dive into things. I mean, he started playing the dog. There's a scene, I don't know if you know the film.
Yeah. My family watches it like every
Christmas. He gets bit by Bowser, and did he bite him on the pecker or something? And he was there, and it was like the director would have to. I don't know why I'm dropping on his name. He's such a great director. I think he's like
these are names that you can drop.
But he kind of had to pull him in at a certain point because he was a genius.
Yeah.
People throw that word around, but I'm telling you, anybody was around him, that so he would go off. So he was at one point he's working on the script, but then another point he's just vamping and going off, and he starts playing a fucking dog.
I feel like I can imagine that with someone like Robin Williams.
His stand-up is so like he's like this, and he's like this, like this, like this.
How appropriate is that to the friggin' rehearsal? And yet everybody kind of gave it to him. I forget who he's in the scene with, and you just, because anyway. But it was one of the highlights of my life because it was working on that film with those people.
That's amazing.
That's awesome.
But now moving on to what I'm sure is the other highlight of your life, Blood Rage. I know this movie went through many different titles, including The Complex, Slasher, Nightmare at Shadow Woods, and of course Blood Rage. But when you auditioned, what was the movie called? And do you remember what the audition was like for the twin roles of Terry and Todd?
No, and probably not. I would guess Nightmare at Shadow Ridge, but I don't. It went through so many different titles that I thought I was just kind of loose in the head because I didn't know what to refer to it or put it on a resume. But it did go through a lot of titles and a lot of owners. It took a while to get released.
Yeah.
And it was flipped, and that was very common for horror films. You probably know all that business of it much better than I do. But track who made money on Texas Chainsaw Massacre, for example.
Yeah, no, but how about the audition? Do you remember anything about what they asked you to
chemistry reads with the other cast?
I remember.
Or with yourself?
Yeah, chemistry reads with myself. Well, I remember the casting director, Amanda Mackey, was next door. And I happened to have a connect with her because she was my first agent. I was her first client when I first got my first show in New York. I remember the room. I remember the hall where it was. The rest I'm making up. I'm sure that I had audition doing both. I can tell you about preparing the two characters.
Yeah. No, hey, you know what? It's been almost 40 or more than 40 years.
I can't remember what I did last Wednesday, so
yeah, trust.
no worries.
Well, but one question, and again, anything you don't remember, it's totally fine. We talk to people all the time who are like, "Can you remind me about that movie?" Do you know if the filmmakers ever considered casting actual twins as Terry and Todd, or do you think they always wanted just one actor to play both roles?
The best of my knowledge, they always wanted one. I know who their second choice was.
Oh, who?
Well, I just remembered his name. I'm not telling you.
Oh, so close. Robin Williams.
Well, no, I'll think about whether I'll say it. I'm just being honest, you know. Otherwise, I never would have. I wouldn't have teased. But the reason that the thing went up is that is there a reason not to? Our lives crossed again in another project, but he was the second choice. I don't know if he would ever be aware of this, that he was the second choice. But there were negotiations involved, and he was the second choice. Anyway, Peter Strong.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And then you crossed paths with him later in your career?
When I was doing Sweet Bird of Youth, opposite Lauren Bacall.
Oh my gosh, you got to work with Lauren Bacall?
I did.
That's awesome.
I had to work with Lauren Bacall for over 100 performances of Sweet Bird of Youth.
What year was that?
Oh, jeez.
I'm sorry.
That's a question.
Lauren Bacall, because she's in another one of my favorite films called The Fan.
Oh my God. Yes.
Do you remember The Fan?
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's an awesome film.
With Michael Biehn.
Yeah, like he loves her and he tries to kill her.
He's a fan.
Yeah, I only ever had one experience like that.
Oh.
Wait, you had an experience where a fan got too creepy crazy with you?
I got a couple of creepy calls and a couple of creepy things in the post, and then one night I didn't order any food, and I was not expecting anybody, and it was evening, the sun was down. I don't think it was really late, and I opened my apartment door, and this guy's like, and it wasn't an unpleasant or predatory look, but it was weird look, and it was
That's
a guy
terrifying.
It was the same person I had noticed the calls. I had noticed the mail. I wasn't deluged, but it was enough that I had noticed them over a couple of years.
Wow. I mean, we've talked to people who have had stalkers, and that's the kind of thing about fandom. The thing that sucks about people who take fandom too far is that it ruins it for the other people like us who are just true fans, but don't take it to that level, you know?
I mean, I am wearing you on my shirt today.
But he would not order you food in the middle of the night or show up at your doorstep.
No, I'm far too lazy.
Yeah, and trust me, it was I'm not 100% yet, but we all have to make that look on his face.
Yeah, spooky.
And again, it was the calls and the rest of it beforehand, and I knew right away that that's who it was, and that's what I put together. You're this, yes, okay.
You put an end to it.
Yeah, dead flat, boom. Not interested. This goes nowhere. Next call's the police.
Was he a Blood Rage fan in particular, or was there a specific thing you were in that he was obsessed with?
My body of work.
Well, of course, but
no. I think it was. Was there a specific thing? I don't remember. Don't remember.
Yeah.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
The good thing is that you don't remember because.
I'm glad you're safe.
You know what I'm saying? In the sense that if somebody gloms onto you, then they start watching whatever they. Yeah.
Yeah.
So for listeners who haven't seen Blood Rage, basically the main story is that as kids, Terry frames his twin brother Todd for a murder he commits in front of him. And Todd is too traumatized to speak up, so he gets sent to a mental institution. But then 10 years later, on Thanksgiving, Todd escapes. He's intending to tell everyone that he's innocent just as Terry starts killing people again. So I did want to ask you about, and you mentioned this, did you plan beforehand how you wanted to play Terry versus Todd? Like, how did you decide how to differentiate between them?
Yeah, this is one of my favorite memories from it. And when I was negotiating the contract, I for sure brought it up. um, yeah, I broke it down because I was like Stanislavski. I was theater, Mr. Serious Actor, and I broke each one down, and I had a list. I can remember some of them.
Uh, that was Todd.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was Todd's expressions. Terry.
They're the more obvious ones: the body posture and the head askew. And I'd write them down, and I kept it as a cheat list, as a checklist, because you're working long hours, and trust me, they're overlapping. If this is the location where Terry and Todd both appear, it's just boom, next scene's Terry, next scene's Todd. And yeah, so I broke it down. I broke down, but I don't remember specifically different things with the language too.
And was it your idea to make Terry's hair,
Todd's hair
disheveled, or in like Terry? I'm getting confused.
Well, because Todd had the more kind of disheveled hair versus Terry's was nicely coiffed.
Yeah, sure. Oh boy, was it? That was like the '80s. Man, I look at Todd and I go, is that really me? Man, that guy's such an asshole. Oh.
That's one of the things I really love about the movie is just like everyone is so 80s, and like the girl's hair is big, and just everyone is so it's so innocent. The film is so innocent.
But I really do, like you're saying, you made a list of them. It really showed in the movie. I'm not just saying that, like Todd, not just his hair, but like you said, that kind of hunchback.
Yeah,
the shoulder.
I gotta tell you, I'm proud of it. Well,
yeah.
I look back on it for the Blu-ray before I did the Blu-ray thing, and they came to me about reissuing it as a Blu-ray, and somebody bought it, and this whole phenomenon, and I looked at the version. I hadn't looked at it in years, and I went, not bad. I was really pleased with the consistency and the clarity and the fact that the choices held up. They just kind of made sense.
It did, and it helps the audience differentiate between them. So because, we see different actions, because obviously it's you playing both parts, but we can immediately be like, okay, that's Todd or that's Terry. But the other kind of very important character in this movie is Terry and Todd's mom, Maddie.
Oh, yeah.
So I got to ask you about this. This is something I've wondered for so many years. Louise Lasser, perfectly unhinged performance. Now, Terry and his mom seem to be really close, but like really close, to the point that I always wondered, did the director, John Grissmer, ever talk about wanting it to seem like there was like an incestuous relationship going on between Terry and his mom?
We certainly played it. I don't think he talked about it. And I think that came from Louise. Because she was so intense. She's inimitable performer. And I don't know if you're familiar with these concepts, but I may carry the film, but she's the essence of the world. She's what gives the film its heart, its voice. She's what makes it, in that sense, stand out. Like if paralleling to writing or to some other genre is Louise. And it's funny that you should mention that, because only now that you're mentioning it do I recall the intensity and the touching and all of that business that she brought to it. I think that was her.
I was just thinking, I'm close with my mom, but we don't do that kind of stuff.
I think that's why this film, everyone talks about it, because of your performances. There's an undertone that you want to figure out, and it's like a mystery, like what is going on between the son and mother.
It's just like they're so close. I think they even kiss on the lips. She's very touchy-feely.
Yes. If well, I'm giving it lip service. I am a serious actor doing this horror film. Louise Lasser, because she's famous for the TV series.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you something, man. In terms of intensity and ferocity, she owned it.
And what was
so?
It like?
She was exploring all this incest, symbolic. I'm exaggerating, not a whit.
Oh, we got it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And what was it
The
like
film,
to
you
work
can
with
recognize
her?
it so wherever she was, you know? Anyway, go ahead.
I was just going to say, what was it like to work with her? Because it looked, I mean, there were times when she was on the phone or vacuuming or eating out of the refrigerator. Was she improving, and was the director open to that?
And was she
Yes.
anything
Yeah.
like her character in real
Yes, and
life?
yes, and yes. Now, how much she was like, I don't, I'll think about it and come back maybe. But she would bring, I'm sure, herself to any part she was playing, some aspect of herself. She was that kind of actress. And we ended up having problems, but I never, I mean, I couldn't be clearer about this. That's just, I don't, why I'm not finding the words very, about the work. There was never a question about the work in my mind. But I remember especially, I think it's Todd, but I don't want to manufacture that. Could have just been at a certain point, Mark Soper just I was frustrated with her. But it fed the performances to some degree, and there is no gainsaying what she brought. There isn't, and I never did.
I mean,
Whatever the difficulties, but you're a human being too. You know what I'm saying? Somebody's always kicking you in the shin. It doesn't matter how good it is for the show. There's a part of you that's going, "Hey, my shin hurts." Not
we always watch this, and it's hard to look away when she's in the scene, and that's why I think we were wondering, like, did the director want her to be that big, or was that her? And it sounds like it was her, kind of.
Well, I don't know. I have no contact with John Grisma. I don't, so if you were talking to him, the time constraints on these things is so enormous. I'm sure you talk to people, I don't know if they talk about it, but they can be so enormous. Well, depending on who's working on them and who's shooting it, I guess you could do line them up, shoot them down, and get a very successful and effective product. But that wasn't this one. And we haven't talked about the understudy, but that was a completely different way of process. But when you're working with Louise, you're taking your time. So, for example, one of the things that I became frustrated with is, rightly or wrongly, I'm just got memory. I'm sorry, I didn't spend a lot of time. I did a couple of leads in films. I was very ambitious. It wasn't just this one. I took it on for a couple other films. I felt like which may not have been good for me, but I didn't just feel the part. The part was part of a movie. It was part of a whole thing. Literally down to the point was, if we run out of money, we're not going to get the whole script on screen. Mm-hmm. And I've seen those kinds of things, and I'm sure you have. And some of it's quite entertaining, and some of it's funny as hell. There are some very effective horror films that the narrative just goes right out the window because they didn't get it all. Yeah. They just didn't get it all. It's a technical medium. You run out of money, or you had a post-production problem and you couldn't raise the money to go back, and yet it hit. You know what I'm saying? It's not that rare for low budget. So that I remember that creating a big tension in me at one point.
Did you have to go back and do any kind of reshoots? Because it was filmed in 83, but released in 87. Was it all just filmed at one time?
Yes. I reviewed the tapes. I don't have any recollection. The only is that there are some very different edits, and there are time differences of up to 15 minutes.
Oh.
Yeah.
So
the gore,
again, it feeds into, if they include it, I mean, they got plenty of Louise Lasser if they printed it.
That phone call alone.
Before, there was stuff, again, she would take time, space, and it gave her that presence, and it really works. It's very effective. Mm-hmm. I don't think we ever went back. I think certainly not that I'm aware of. I'll go on that. But they played around with different cuts and edits and different emphasizing this, that, and the other.
So, wanted to ask you about your interpretation of this, because in terms of what sets Terry off on his killing spree, in addition to finding out that his mom is engaged.
See, I thought my brother got released. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, well,
It's the engagement. It's the sex.
well, but it also, that's what I was going to say. It also seems like he gets triggered by seeing people having sex. Like in the opening scene, he sees the people at the drive-in having sex. He kills the guy. Then he sees Greg and Andrea on the diving board. He kills him. So do you think it was sex that triggered Terry, or do you think it was just one of those 80s slasher tropes, where people having sex have to die?
Well, again, and this is going back, I forgot it was the mom getting married. I remember the guy now because he gets his head chopped off on the thing. It's actually a funny story because it was an effect that went horribly wrong. And he came off the pedestal and the first take it sprayed all over the room and he fell down and collapsed. And they had to do a whole new reset. It took like half a day again. But that was the husband thing. I mean, the betrothal. So I think that was probably.
Well, it's funny. My next question.
Of course, sex, death. I mean, that's like the trope of most adolescent horror films. But
I was just going to say that story about your first kill. That was actually a next question because I heard you tell a little bit of it on the PVD horror podcast. Can you tell our listeners what happened when you were filming that kill scene with the mom's fiance where you cut his hand off? What went wrong in that?
They had some kind of, I don't know exactly how it happened, but basically, well, now I'm retelling it. Because of the camera angle and the desk, they had to put the chair up on a platform. And there was probably a rug underneath. So the wheels didn't matter on the chair. So this is coming together, I guess, as these things come together. I don't remember standing there watching them set it up. But when I came in, they had the chair on the platform with wheels on it. And it doesn't take a lot to see that that's an invitation for disaster. But it was happening at that point. And they had the effect and they had the blood pumps coming out of the hand. And it was supposed to spin on the chair, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it didn't have wheels. Maybe it just tipped, because you can't really rehearse it.
Right. It's like one and done. Yeah. Right.
That's why they have stunt people sometimes. Nothing for the actor here. You just don't have a lot of coverage. It's a horror film, so anyway, and all I meant by that is that when you're in the moment, you're playing you're doing all this. Secondary is the balance on the chair. Whereas for a stunt person, it's the balance would be the balance on the chair and then movements. No, they learn in stunt class. You see it all the time. I'm in a fight, I'm falling to the ground, keep motion. But he was doing it anyway. So I've already busted the ending, but when they called action, it started and it chopped and the hands off and he spun around and it just tilted. Whether it was on wheels or just lost balance. I think he was on wheels. He just went right off the platform that they had thrown in to get the camera angle right over the desk. So once he started to teeter over the edge, now you have the actor. Now he is trying to balance. The blood's still spurting out of his hand, and he ends up spinning around and shooting blood over everybody. And, of course, they're running to cover the camera because, cameras are gold.
Right. They're expensive.
Oh, expensive as hell. Anything goes wrong with them, you're held up for weeks. I mean, cameras are a whole story.
And what was it like working in Jacksonville, Florida? Did you guys have the run of the whole complex? Did you stay at the complex? Were you only allowed to film at certain times?
We stayed. It's a funny story about staying at the complex because the special effects guy had his apartment and he had all his special effects in there. And the cleaning lady freaked out because she didn't know. And so she went in the day after he arrived and just put out all the stuff with the bodies and everything. And she cracks the door open and she starts screaming and she runs out. So it was a very, very funny story. I wasn't there, but I can imagine it. No, we didn't have the run of the whole place. But, when you're shooting a film, and you're renting half of the place, you kind of have a run of the place.
Yeah.
But I don't remember that they rented out the whole complex.
I wonder what the neighbors thought.
I know.
I don't know. It's such a crazy world being in a horror film. I mean, you probably know. Have they ever? Who's made a horror film about making a horror film?
Lots of people. Funny enough, it's now there's so many meta like movie within a movie.
Sure.
Scream 3.
But I think, and we're gonna get to this later, but in Graveyard Shift 2, you're making a vampire film, and it's a vampire film.
I'm right. I have the images on the end of the bay, and I keep going back over them. Yeah.
So literally your film. Yeah. One thing we read about Blood Rage is that the producer Marianne Cantor stepped in to play the role of Dr. Berman because the actress who was cast never showed up. Do you remember how that all went down or what happened?
Oh God, I don't. She was such a great character. She was so eccentric. Marianne Cantor.
Yes. Producer, yeah.
We haven't been in touch in forever, and I have a business story that just means a lot. And I had a percent on the film, some small amount. I never expected to get paid, and so she did when it got sold. She sent me a check.
Oh, nice.
I went out of my way to get back to her because business is business. Business is kind of naughty, and film business and stuff is kind of particularly naughty. And anyway, if you don't have to, people sign stuff all the time. I'm sorry if I'm breaking anybody's illusions, but it's what I got to do if you can catch me, and only if it costs more than the legal fees. It's just that's the way it is. Sorry that breaks anybody's bubble, but big dreams and really nasty on the money. It just is the way it is. So I thanked her, and she said, I always pay my investors, and I always pay what's on my contract. But it's not, it just fills the rounding of her that she put all that together. And I didn't know she was an actress. The business, everybody's an actor. Everybody. And
everyone's got an 8x10.
And then it didn't work. And so I became a great, what's his name? The genius streaming series, Yellowstone. Apparently
Kevin Costner, yeah.
No. Kevin was an actor, and he made it. The guy who writes all those things.
I don't watch that show.
He's like that one, and then the prequels, and then Linus, and then all those. He started out as an actor. I understand. I don't know that. I don't know the man.
Speaking of the actors, have you seen?
She was wonderful in that. She was wonderful. That was my payoff. However she came to do it, I remember being surprised. I remember smiling, and I remember going, good for you.
You're like, oh my God, the producer's in the movie now.
Come on, she would wear these big hats. If you remember how thin and little, does that come off? She must have weighed 95 pounds.
The big memory is when she gets cut in half, and it's literally her top half next to her bottom half in the movie.
And you were so nice.
Talk about
putting
improv.
Your body put back together.
I said I want to put the bodies back together, and the guy says, I'm just remembering this now as we're talking. It was very open. We were very open to stuff, and I think that shows up in the film, adds some percentage of, effectiveness. And the guy said it's not designed for that. It's not designed for that. It's going to lose all proportionality. As soon as you take it and put them back together again, you're going to see that this is designed to look like it matches if they were in the camera. And I said, well, can we try it and just see? It's such a moment. I want to put her back together.
Well, she's Todd's doctor. I mean, he's been in the mental institution for 10 years.
I mean, come on. I got to put myself back together. I've got to put her back together.
One thing so there's an interview with Marianne Cantor on the Blu-ray also. And one thing she said in her interview was that apparently, and I wanted to ask you if you had any recollection of this, Louise Lasser and director John Grissmer didn't quite get along. In fact, that Grissmer even quit in the middle of the shoot and she had to get him to come back. Do you remember there being tension between them on set?
That's for her to talk about.
And like, have you seen any of the actors or any of the people that worked on Blood Rage since you filmed? Have you run into them at all or anything?
That's a really interesting question. Amanda cast it. Amanda Mackey, I referred to. Peter Strong didn't get cast. I did. And then I ran into him again later. I think it was later. Another project that we worked on. I'm working too hard. I remained friends with somebody for a while, for a few years. And she did a project at Triangle Factory Fire. I saw that must have been almost 7 years after that. Lisa Randall had a small part. Not really.
And what do you think of the music in the film? Because I absolutely love the score. Are you a fan of the scores as much as everyone?
Well, I think the scores got changed a lot in the edits, the different ones. So I don't want to pretend I remember the last one that well.
It's very catchy.
Horrible. That's horrible. But if it comes back, you want to hum a few lines? No, I mean,
it's like na na na.
Great rendition.
I couldn't bring it to life.
I mean, I'm
but
pretty sure that there was one that had, or I could just be making this up, that just had the keyboard, because that was so popular for about 10 years. They just had that kind of keyboard with the bells.
The 80s synthy feel.
Catchy, especially by the pool. I love the ending.
I know exactly what you're talking about. It's very it's so 80s horror. It's like the epitome of 80s horror. One thing we have to talk about is your iconic line in the film, "It's not cranberry sauce," which Terry repeats over and over after killing Artie with a carving fork. So I got to ask, do you remember if that line was in the script or did you improvise it?
I want to be humble and I want to be accurate and I want to have fun. So I'll tell my version. If somebody else has their version, I'll smile and say, well, great. Maybe that was what happened. I don't want to be too serious about it. As I remembered, I came up with that line and I took a pile of shit for it. I took a lot of shit for that. Not organized. Just people going, what the hell? And I was going, you wait, you just wait. That line's gonna stand out. That line's great. Standing by that line. So when it did come back, finally, it didn't have a lot of pop in the first couple versions in the 80s, but boy, does that resonate now.
Yeah, it's on my shirt. And did you think that you'd still be associated with Blood Rage 40 years later?
Again, when you're on these films, he says these films, it has to feel when you're on these films, and the whole crew on Blood Rage they were like a professional group of itinerant, low-budget filmmakers. At least half of them were horror films. They were the ones who were really the old hands at this world, at this genre, at this, and they were such a world unto themselves. I really dug it. I kind of felt it being around them. Very different from, say, working on Garp. Or I worked on another film, Parole, that had all Boston Yahtzee people. Very particular kind of crews that's different from the LA crews on a higher budget. Anyway, they have feels to them. They have worlds. And I don't forget what the hell you asked now, but
did you ever think you'd be associated with this movie?
So
and that
you're
line?
on it, right. So you're on the film, and some of these people are jaded as hell. Others are still like, and they're all so like traveling circus. They're so into it. So when people start saying, "Oh, this is going to be different. This is going to be a cult film, or this is going to make, or this, that, and the other thing," I got to admit, with Louise Lasser, and I thought, well, who knows? But I'm certainly going to make it the best film I can. But you get there's no way around it. You get the feeling that goes around the set an awful lot on the making of these films, and it probably helps motivate people. And everybody has dreams and aspirations, and anything. So what are you going to do? Walk around and popping bubbles? But all of which is to say, when I started to get slowly dribs and drabs, the first was from Italy. Could have been happenstance, or it could have been at a horror festival there. Then I got some from UK. Then it started happening here in the States, and I went, wow, something's happening with this thing. And here we are. This is at least 5 years, 6 years after I was first contacted. And this 80s horror genre is something. Nobody could be more surprised, and nobody could be more pleased. I had no expectations.
That's a great attitude to have, though. And I think it also gives hope for people who do horror today. They look at what these films from the 80s have done and how they're still so popular today. And they think, oh, maybe my movie can catch on and be a cult classic in 40 years. I think people didn't know when they were filming these movies in the 80s that they would be so popular so many years later. And now, in a way, people are taking horror more seriously because it has a lasting effect.
Couldn't agree more. Yeah.
You were in the heyday of 80s. It was like it was a prime time. So it's awesome.
Well, so got to talk about the climax of the film at the pool. And I wanted to ask you, do you remember how they filmed you have a big fight scene. There's a big fight scene between Todd and Terry. You're playing both characters fighting each other in the pool. So essentially you're fighting yourself, but I'm assuming there weren't effects at the time to show you as both characters of once. So do you remember filming that pool scene and how they had to do both parts?
I'm calling it back as you talk. I'm going back to the pool. I remember the set of the pool. There was a sex scene on the diving board, and there was the fight scene. I wasn't at first recalling the fight scene, but I'm remembering it now. I had a wonderful double.
It was a really good double.
He's really a good guy and a good guy to work with, and so we worked it out. With camera angles and the camera switches. I was really fussy about the different body postures and all of that serious actor stuff. And he was very non-defensive and very open. I mean, he didn't take that as in any way an assault on his work or anything. He just was trying to do the best he could.
Yeah. I mean, do you remember, did you have to film all of one character's scenes, then all of the next character's scenes?
Oh, it was constantly going back. They're not going to move the camera. It was all about the camera and setups.
Yeah, that's what I can imagine.
That's what I kept telling him when we were negotiating. I said, you guys, man, you need somebody with a theater background who can pop these characters like this, bang, bang. When you're on, this is the way I would talk. God love the world that it puts up with me. He said, you're not going to take the time to move it all the way around the pool. You're just going to move 10 feet and the light's over. And if that's going to be an angle on Todd, then the other one's on Terry. Everything's going to be about the production and the costs and the time. And, you need somebody who can switch back and forth on this and not get lost over the course of 6 weeks.
Yeah. I can't even imagine how complicated that would be to film before you had, nowadays you can just have the effects where literally they can put two of you in one scene at once. But
right. Back then you had to do an optical. And if we did one, it was it, because they're expensive to post and they're time consuming on the set because you have to lock everything down. You have to shoot it on a certain frame. People love to watch which character it is as part of the joy of watching doubles. So if we did one, you know what I'm saying? So the people watching it would have one that didn't line up. Oh, that's the camera angle. That's the camera angle. Oh, they're both in this shot. And even back then, you can see that the depth is never quite exact. Mm-hmm. It kind of looks a little odd. But today,
for the 80s, it worked.
Yeah, it worked.
Yeah.
I also wanted to ask you about your interpretation of that kind of crazy ending where Louise Lasser, the mom, finally shoots Terry, the true murderer, to death. But then when Todd tells her that he's in fact Todd, she gets really upset that she killed Terry and ends up killing herself. So I'm just wondering your thoughts on that.
That hurts me. That really hurts me. Yeah. I mean, just to hear it just really hurts my feelings because I was experiencing Todd. And it's just, what a fucked up family, man.
And she starts screaming, "I'm Todd." That's my favorite part.
Well, I think that's her, but God love her for it. I may get, depending on other people's recollection, it's not cranberry sauce. He gets an awful lot of that stuff, and I'm pretty sure that was That's her.
I do got to ask though, did you interpret that ending as, okay, the mom just loved Terry so much she didn't care if he was a murderer, she just wanted him to survive? Or do you think she actually still thought Todd was the killer and shot the wrong son?
Oh man, now you're in the philosophical. First, my first take on it, she loved him more than me, and he was her perfect baby. I was the, ordering compulsion. I was the one who didn't fit in, so I was designated as, evil, and he was designated as perfect. But it's pathological because she's nuts.
Yeah. I mean, she's witnessing him killing and doesn't care. That's her favorite son. It's really, you're right. I love that you said it's a fucked up family. There's no better way to describe the family than
There's
that.
just a sequel. Where's the dad?
Well, I don't know. If somebody asked me on an interview if I would do a sequel, and I said, "Are you kidding? Just send me a date and time." I mean, the work on these things can be so fun. I'll just, we can talk about it or not, but it can be so fun.
Yeah.
And what was your thought when the film was wrapped? Was there a cast and crew screening or any kind of red carpet or like movie theater, like where everyone got to see it together?
I got immediately mixed up with something I did with Patrick O'Neill. Why, I don't know. And I'm going to guess, because obviously they were two different projects. That was a high quality project, and this was a horror film. They screened at the same screening room in New York City, in Manhattan. I do remember seeing a screening. It was it wasn't in the same rhythm, a normal rhythm. There's really no normal in these things, but I think it was could have even been 2 years later. It just feels to me like there was something odd about the screening. But yeah, there was a screening in New York that I'm either fabricating or that actually happened. And I think it did happen. And my guess would be right around the time it was sold.
And you like seeing it on the big screen?
Oh yeah, it's always fun.
You mentioned that it took a while before it really caught on and you realized how popular it was. So when did you first become aware that Blood Rage had this cult following?
Again, I got this weird, and I'm remembering it now, from Italy, and I went, whoa! Because think about the time. You're talking 1980s, and then it got sold into the video stores.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first. If you watch the thing with Canner, maybe she talked about it, but that could have been 3 years later. It was some time. So whenever that was, say it's even 1990, that's, even if it's 15, it's 25 years, 25, 30 years. And I see if somebody approaches me on the internet or somehow, I think it was email. Would you do an interview or da-da-da-da? And I'm going, whoa, I haven't heard about this film. And then, 4 months later, you get another one. And you go, and then 2 months, you get 3. And you go, hey, something's going on here. And then it accrued. And here we are today. And the Blu-ray. Yeah. The Blu-rays kind of kicked it. I got approached again. They said, we own it now. We're going to do re-edit. We're going to do put it out on Blu-ray. Would you be part of the Blu-ray thing? Of course I would.
And I think that was 2015, around there, sometime around then that the Blu-ray came out.
That was what my guess. My guess was maybe 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I don't think it was more than 10 years.
And so what do you think is the appeal that has everyone coming back to Blood Rage all these years later?
I was talking to somebody about this about 5 or 6 years ago. Somebody was interviewed. And, harmlessly enough, it could have just been my own attachment to my own work, but I meant it when the interviewer asked me. As I recall back then, being the psychotic killer, a psychotic character, it was just before Hannibal Lecter. So you had people out there, but they were so insane, they were all weird looking and, twisted and whatever. But to have then the normal guy be the killer. To have that of a normal but problem person versus a perfect but pathological person. I thought that that was really new. And I thought that that was kind of compelling. I'm not saying that that's true or not true, but the interviewer kept saying, well, it's a Thanksgiving film. It's Thanksgiving, holiday movie, blah, blah. And of course, we both agreed about Louise Lasser and just the world that she creates by her performance. But I think he's right. You tell me.
I mean, my
The holiday,
thoughts,
right? It's the family.
well, I think it's a combination. I think the twin aspect of one being psychotic but seen by everyone else as normal, while the one who's seen as psychotic really is the normal one.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, is such a cool, inventive twist for the slasher genre. And putting it on a holiday slashers are so popular. It's the kind of thing where when it hits Thanksgiving, I mean, even Tim and I, we are always like, we got to watch Blood Rage. So it gives it a timely factor, you know?
You know, Hannibal Lecter, I don't think there's a Richard Widmark film where he pushes is she in a wheelchair? It made his career. Do you know, or at least what I'm referring to?
Is it Fade to Black?
It could be.
I feel like I know the scene.
Yeah.
It's a famous scene, and more people have heard of it than have seen it. I have seen it, and it's 100 years later. No, 90, whatever. And it's still shocking. That Hollywood had a moment where they would have a character push an invalid down the stairs with, if anything, a little relish. But basically, until Hannibal Lecter became this, how can I put it simply, but symbolically resonant with an experience that mass audiences had with themselves. Kids felt psychotic. Kids felt, I'm so weird. I'm so different. I can't fit in. You know, we have these impulses. We don't know what to do with them. That character was a gestalt in the novel and on screen. Mm-hmm. And that's where my first saying that the brothers, there was something about the good guy being crazy that killer that was new. I don't know enough to know from a film history point of view. If I was teaching it, I'd have to go and look at all of them, you know, because that's what knowledge is. But it felt that way at the time.
Yeah.
That was something that was burgeoning but new.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, I think, again, the holiday part is an aspect of why it's popular, but I don't think it's the only aspect. I mean, it definitely the twin.
Well, and the mom, geez, I don't know. The mother thing is just.
I think it's also because you're so casual. Like, you're like, oh, my brother broke out of a mental hospital. What? Like, it's so like.
Yeah, no. Even when he commits the murders, it's like,
that was fun and bold. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
it's like fun and bold. He doesn't comment on it at fucking all.
Yeah.
I love it. So
hey, how you doing?
Yeah, exactly. It was very just like matter of fact. So, you know, Blood Rage wasn't your only horror film. We mentioned in the intro that you returned to the genre in 1989's The Understudy, Graveyard Shift 2 as Matthew, one of the filmmakers of the vampire movie within a movie. So what I was wondering is, when you auditioned for this film, had you seen the original Graveyard Shift or know anything about it?
No. I don't know that for 100%, but that's something I did after. I'm virtually positive.
And you mentioned on the PVD Horror Podcast that working with director Jerry Cicciotti was one of the best experiences of your life. So what about his directing style? What made it such a great experience?
Totally collaborative. It was totally collaborative, and I've now since then once or twice had it. You know, I did a short film. I love this short film, Famous Last Words. And the casting director, blah, 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 doesn't matter. But she was having trouble bringing her vision to the director's vision. So she was for me, and he was reticent, but he couldn't find anybody. But she finally said, you guys meet over coffee. And I'm nervous because, you know, business is business. You don't want any chance to screw something up. But in any event, I trusted her, and we weren't making progress. And I said, you got to sometimes just, anyway. So we sat down and we started talking. if you feel where this is going. And you're always nervous meeting a new person. And within 10 seconds, it was like, poof. And he's so much younger than me, all different point of view, but the love of the work, he was all film, I'm theater and film, different eras. He's LA, I'm New York. It was simpatico. Jerry, deep and wide, right from the beginning. So we just got along about the work. There was just simpatico about the work. And he got time to rehearse, which is unheard of in a low budget. It was just great working with him. I don't know if I referred to this, but when I came back to New York, I was singing his praises, and I'm trying to remember which agent, doesn't matter to you, I was with at the time, but then they came back and said, this Jerry Chickariti must really be something. I said, well, I just had the best time of my life, whatever, whether it was a one-off or whatever, I had the best time of my life working with him. He says, yeah, because you do nothing but bitch. I said, really? He said, yeah, you're always like so critical of everybody and everything. And I said, oh my God. So he said, this guy must really be something. So yeah, I love working with Jerry Chickariti.
That's funny.
You know, for all I know, he was handling me.
That's funny.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah. But I mean,
he was so damn good at it, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, who cares as long as you got along?
Yeah,
exactly. Your character in Graveyard Shift 2 ends up kind of taking out the vampire in the end. So essentially, you're the hero of that film, which is way different than being a murderer in Blood Rage. So I have to ask, which do you enjoy more, playing a hero or a villain?
I'm so glad that you're spending a moment on this film, because I haven't thought about it. Not only did I love working with him, but I love playing that character. Why did I love playing that character? What did you say? He's normal?
I mean, he's a film. Yeah.
But I remember now distinctly feeling, you know, you can be more myself. Just, there wasn't it's like, what of me can I just bring? How much do I have to change or alter or whatever to bring life to the demands of the character and the situation? And because of the way we worked, including Jerry, but because of the way we worked, I just felt like I could, literally do scenes where I literally just, isn't there the one in the bathtub with the ring on? I don't know if you got to see it again.
We did. Yeah.
I improvised that.
Oh, wow.
It was a big action sequence at the end.
Well, at the end, yeah, but it's also there's like a little bit of a romantic connection with, I think, the lead girl.
We came up with the stopper and the ring and the stopper for the engagement ring. Unless, again, I'm crazy and inventing it, but that shit is so fun.
Yeah.
To just be in a situation and working with Wendy Gazelle, I believe, and whoever came up with the engagement and the candles and the crew's working and getting the lighting, and you're talking with the director, and that kind of thing is fun. So anyway, which do I enjoy more? I said, this stuff can be really fun to work on. I was thinking more of Blood Rage, because you get to make these outrageous decisions and play choices. But now that you reminded me of Graveyard Shift 2, what I loved about that was, off the top of my head, I played more me than I did in almost any film. I let myself alone almost entirely in that.
And horror films are fast paced the way they're filmed, but also you were in Knots Landing. I'm a huge soap fan. I watched a lot. I watched a couple of your episodes. What did you enjoy working on the soap, and were they filmed faster than the horror films?
Easiest money I ever made.
Really?
Yeah, we can unpack it if you want, but I am telling you, it was just, you get paid because it was, even though it was last gasp, if you want to be reductive, but it had been on a long time. And so you get well paid, and the work is, and I'm just old enough to remember real-time filming of soaps.
Yeah, and you were in a nighttime soap, so did they take a little more time?
You got to reshoot. That's my point. It's like, the stress level's really down. So you're doing soap material, you get to do reshoots, you get well paid, you're working because there's so many storylines, 2 or 3 days a week. 3 days a week. Whatever.
And you had like a really good storyline. Like you were dating that the blonde-haired guy's daughter, and like then you left her, and then you were giving up the company. And I had totally enjoyed your storyline.
Oh, good.
It was very good. And I have to ask this: did you continue to watch Knots Landing when you left the show?
If I did, it was just occasionally to check in. It wasn't. It wasn't. So it's not really that I got hooked to the show and then started watching it.
You weren't addicted to soaps.
No. I loved working on soaps. I did Loving, and I did One Life to Live, and I did Knots Landing.
Oh, awesome.
So I didn't do a lot of time on them, but they were continuing characters. So over the length of time that I was, doing it professionally. So, but no, I didn't. I would watch it to reminisce.
It's on Prime. You can watch it all seasons.
So I'm not a big soap fan, but because of doing this podcast with Tim, he's introduced me to certain episodes and things. And one thing I will say about soaps is that I feel like the plot of Blood Rage with the twins, the bad and the good one, would be perfect for a soap opera. Like I feel like that would be a soap opera like gold, having the two twins and one bad, one good kind of thing.
Yeah.
Todd and Terry on Knots Landing.
Todd and Terry on The Bold and the Beautiful.
Yes.
The problem with Blood Rage is that I didn't realize it, but Louise gets killed and she would be too old, the mother, and Terry gets killed.
But did we see Terry got shot? We don't know. Maybe he survived the shows.
Fair enough.
Anything can happen in the world of soaps and horror films.
Exactly. So just a few more questions before we wrap up. Mark, I read that over the last decade or so, you've done some one-man shows, and I was wondering, can you tell us about these, and are you still doing theater today?
Yes. And yes. I did, I don't know if it's interesting to list them at all. I did an Age of Angels one-person show. I did Tantra LA, part 1 and 2. And, oh my God. I wrote and directed I Miss Communism, and I think I'm missing one.
There was a James Bond something in the title.
Oh yes, and that I know why I'm dropping that. The last James Bond and the Final Mission 1-6, which I wrote before James Bond was announced that it was the last film, Craig, and before the 47th president announced that he was running for office. And I just got the gestalt. I just got the moment. I got the cultural moment. But it is a poem long form that was written to be read. It's a tough genre. It's tough to sell. So it was kind of, I got to put it on its feet. I didn't even get it filmed. The project was kind of fell apart. It was during COVID. COVID kept starting and stopping it. But I was working on that when I did one of the interviews. I remember that now. They asked, what are you working on? And I was working on that. That's why I didn't think of it. I bet that's the other one-person show I was trying to remember. Because it's not really a one-person show. It's really a poem. It's a lot to ask people to sit through. I had music accompanying it. And excuse me. And so those are the one person shows.
Any theater you're doing today, or you're planning on
projects? I'm working on projects. I have a play that I wrote back in the early '80s about I'm going to sound so effete. About the deindustrialization of America. It was in this fictitious steel town. It's called High Torque Wine. But when you pick it up, it is so dated because of the combination of that world, that macho, ball-clanging, steel workers thing. That is in our polarized era. It's so, and then a high school girl that he barely remembers, and she's become successful in high finance. Anyway, she wanders into a local bar back then. So I'm working on the deconstructed high torque line because it is in the theater world in LA and New York. If you tried to put that on its feet as is, it just now, 30 years later, whatever, it's just our culture is just so taffy pulled. So that's one thing, and the other thing is I wasn't prepared. I'm working on I forget. It'll come to me in a second. But I'm working on 2 other pieces. One is called Jerry, which is about somebody going back to revisit his therapy 30 years after with the therapist. And the other one is so I'm working on them and working on them with people to see about. It's just, you got to have I always have something going in order to get stuff.
That's great. No.
And would you ever do a horror movie convention?
I haven't yet.
I think you should.
We really think you should. You would get a lot of fans that would come up.
Well, it's not, a lot of it's that, it's a different world, This is contained. You're great. You're getting along, We love stuff. People who love stuff get along. We love stuff that we both are involved in. We get along. But it's not a world that I feel really, really comfortable in. So I have to make a leap of faith. And it's just logistics too.
Yeah. I will say this, we in all the people we've talked to some people who were a little hesitant at first to do conventions. And then some people said when they finally did their first one, they were so pleasantly surprised about how much fun they had and just how much love there was from these horror fans. Because, as part of, we consider ourselves horror fans too, the horror community, very loyal, just very appreciative. And I think a lot of actors who think it may be a little creepy and weird are pleasantly surprised at all the love they receive at these conventions.
I don't think it's the creepy in the thing. I almost feel like I'm an interloper a bit. It's really, there's a strangeness to it. It's not familiar territory to me.
I understand.
In a really simple sense. I just think that people who naturally just love this, I have a dear friend who just loves this stuff. And it's more natural for her. So if she were to appear in one, I think it would be more natural for her to go to the convention.
Yeah. Well,
but I heard you.
Yeah. And I think you mentioned this when we talked about a Blood Rage 2, but would you be willing to star in another horror movie today, Blood Rage 2 or not?
Yeah. I said earlier, there's set dynamics and all of that stuff aside. It's about the work, and you just get to make it's a fun world to inhabit. Mm-hmm. You just get to make these. It's a fun world to inhabit.
Have you been back to where they filmed the complex? Have you been back there since filming?
Oh no, I haven't been back to Jacksonville, Florida. No. If I was in the neighborhood, that would be a great idea. I have. I actually flew into for yoga events in where is it, Lake Wales or something, Florida. But if I had time or something, that's a great idea. But no, I haven't. That actually would be fun.
A filming location for yeah.
I love it.
Oh yeah, because
walk around the complex.
My God, what's there? It's the fast food. It's a long time ago, but it's the fast food capital of the world. It is.
I believe you.
I believe you. Yeah.
I didn't have very much time off, but I said, what does this mean, the fast food capital of the world? So I got somebody, and we drove down and started counting. Just counting the numbers. And we were laughing because there was these stores we'd never heard of. Half of them had names you never heard of. It was the fast food capital.
Sounds healthy.
Yeah, really.
So, Mark, we have one final question for you, and we ask this to every single person we interview, and it kind of puts you on the spot a little bit, but well, you've given us a few tidbits that would count for this already. But what is one thing, just one thing you can tell us about your experience working on Blood Rage that you've never told any other interviewer, publication, podcaster? You never told at the Blu-ray interview, just one thing about your experience working on Blood Rage that you've never told in an interview before.
I already had one and then I dropped it because I don't say things that could be interpreted as needlessly negative. It's not needlessly negative because it wasn't about their acting per se. They cast two people in the skin, I'll keep it general, trade, thinking that they would be more comfortable filming explicit sexual material. And that aspect of it backfired completely. And it was kind of fascinating. Their acting was fine, but when it came to taking their clothes off, and they were willing to shoot different versions. Like they were pushing, how far R would go. But when it came to actually doing the sex business, which is they thought will be a leg up, this will be really smart cast. It didn't work. Why it didn't work is kind of interesting. I even talked to them about it afterwards about why that was so weird when that's the world they worked in. But the most I could get was a sense that that was a different world than the acting world.
Yeah.
For them, in some way.
It was an 80s staple, but I don't
Having
think it really.
sex in Harvard, yeah.
I don't think it added or subtracted anything.
We're talking.
But it ended up also not being that explicit. And
no.
the versions I saw were that explicit. They kept trying to get me to show my hiney crack, and they try to get more and more down to genital on screen, which is fair enough. I mean, come on, you're seeing all the women's breasts and everything. I mean, it's totally fair is fair, people. But for more fun than anything, I refused to do it. So I got the smallest swimsuit I could find, which I ended up wearing actually on vacation in St. Martin.
I just liked hearing you say hiney crack.
That is something we have not heard yet.
The smallest suit I could get. And I'll be damned, I kept hearing, catching the suit from the DP because I don't remember why. You'd have to ask Cantor that. She may not even remember it. But I just felt like maybe it was different in the 80s. They were pushing some kind of RX thing.
You know what's funny about the sex scenes in Blood Rage is that, like, on the diving board, they're just literally laying on top of each other. Like nothing is going on.
But in the 80s, any kind of nudity was like, whoa, scandalous. Now it's
the whole point of that scene was that the acting was, for me, and they were fine working together as actors. Yeah. Something happened when they took their clothes off that was opposite what they did in life. That was the point of the story.
Yeah. No, that's a good story. But I can see it's a different.
I just want to make sure it doesn't sound to anybody that.
Yeah, no, that girl, her goal was to party. She liked to party.
It was fun. I mean, they definitely do a lot of nudity in Blood Rage, especially like that shower scene. But
you don't think it has that much nudity?
Really, the shower? Oh, well, but the sex is very tame, very tame.
I think so too, and I think I sure got the idea of what they were going for because you can always edit back.
Yeah.
You can always edit around it, and maybe nobody knew what the limits were really at that time. I don't remember. I don't remember.
I think my big takeaway as a kid when I saw Blood Rage is when he got his hand cut off, he was still holding the beer. And I always thought, that is creative. I've never seen that before. Like, he's like, I'm not letting go of that beer.
Priorities.
And was that on purpose? Did somebody go, this is going to be I don't remember. But
I love it.
Very interesting, huh?
I love it. I think it's great.
It's these moments that make Blood Rage the movie that it is today. And, it's so popular. And Mark, we're so grateful that you took the time to chat with us. We had such a blast talking with you about this movie and just, hearing all of your stories. Thank you so much. Seriously, we really enjoyed this.
Thank you.
Completely my pleasure. I had so much fun. Thank you for the invite.
Of course, and we will definitely be in touch. We hope that in the future we do see you in another horror movie or maybe at a horror convention. We'll see,
Okay.
Okay, well, take care. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon, and we'll be in touch.
All right.
Okay,
Nice meeting you.
Bye, Mark.
Good to meet you both. Yep.
Take care. Bye.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Happy Horror Time.
If you'd like to support the podcast, please sign up to be a patron at www.patreon.com/happyhorrortime. As a patron, you get access to all our bonus content, which now includes 2 new bonus episodes every month, a monthly after show mini episode, access to our Discord community so you can chat with us directly, and the chance to review a film with us in one of our bonus episodes.
Patrons also get all our regular episodes ad-free and a day early, our monthly newsletter, the chance to vote in polls, and autographed Happy Horror Time stickers.
I'm Matt Emmert.
And I'm Tim Murdoch.
And we hope you have a happy horror time.